Okay, so this is quiz 9 for my book, Overcoming Digital SAT Math. And I recommend that if you have this document to attempt the problems on your own first, and then attempt corrections on your own first for the best results, and then kind of use this video as a reference for explanations on stuff that you're stuck on. And I'll put descriptions, I'll put in the description of each of the videos, like as time progresses, other videos that are related that you might find helpful. So just look out for that in the future. So let's get started. So for number 1, it says line N is shown in the graph below. Line M is parallel to line N. So this is line N. So we want to know, what is the slope of line M? So line M is parallel to line N, which means they have the same slope. So if we find the slope for line N, we know the slope of line N. It's a tongue twister. So I'm going to use these 2 points right here, and I'm going to say, okay, what's my change in y over my change in x? Because that's slope. So the change in y would be that it's going up by 2, and then the change in x would be it's going over to the right by 6. If I divide by 2 on top and bottom to simplify this, I would get that that's equal to 1/3. So the slope for line N is 1/3, which means since they're parallel lines, the slope of line M is also 1/3. Now for number 2, it says if line M passes through the point 2, 1, then what is the value of the y-intercept? So we want to know the value of the y-intercept, and this is, they basically gave us an x and a y for line M. So we know the slope for line M, right? We know it's a line, so we know it follows the format of y equals mx plus b. So basically we're trying to find this guy right here, b. And I know that m is 1/3, and I know an x and a y value that I could plug in here. So let's do that. So 1 is plugged in for y, and then I have 1/3 for my m times 2 for my x plus b. So now all I have to do is solve for b. So I have 1 is equal to 2/3 plus b. Now I need to get b by itself by subtracting 2/3 from each side. So 1 minus 2/3 just leaves me with 1/3. That's what b is, or the y-intercept. So your answer is 1/3. So now let's do number 3. What is the value of the x-intercept for line N? So we're focusing on this line, and we want to know x-intercept. So think of x-intercept as like a point where the x value is your x-intercept and the y has to equal 0. So if we know that the slope already is 1/3, and we know it has to follow the format of y equals mx plus b, and we also see on the graph that it has a y-intercept of 2, so y-intercept 2, slope 1/3, I can plug that in here to say I have y is equal to 1/3 for my slope times x plus 2 for my y-intercept. So I have an equation. Now I can plug in 0 for y and solve for my x-intercept. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say 0 is equal to 1/3 x plus 2. So now I'm going to subtract 2 from each side. So I get negative 2 is equal to 1/3 x. So now I'm going to divide by 1/3 on each side, which is the same thing as multiplying by 3, because if you divide by a fraction, it's the same as multiplying by its reciprocal, to get that x is equal to negative 6. So the x-intercept would have to be a, negative 6. Okay, so let's go to number 4 now. So we want an equation for a line that's perpendicular to line N. So perpendicular means that its slope has to be the negative reciprocal to line N slope. So line N has a slope of 1/3, so the negative flipped version or negative reciprocal would be negative 3 over 1, which is just negative 3. So if we're following the format of y equals mx plus b, that means our slope, what's being multiplied by x, has to be negative 3. So which of these has that? Well, the only option would be C. For this function, what is the y-intercept? So y-intercept, if you think about it as a point, it's like 0 for the x, and then your y-intercept is going to be the y value when you plug in 0 for x. So I'm going to plug in a 0 here for my x, and then I'm going to solve for y, which basically you can think of y as like the same thing as f of x as a shortcut. Like some people like to debate like the intricacies of it, but whatever. For the purposes of the exam, easiest way to think about it, same exact thing. So I'm solving for y, or f of x. when I plug in 0 for x. So when I do that, I'm going to get that it equals anything to the 0 power is 1 plus 2 is going to equal 3. So this, my y value, my y-intercept is going to be 3, so it's just 0, 3, C. Yes, correct, it is C. Okay, so number 6, we have this equation right here for a circle, and we want to know the diameter. That's important because remember, if you're used to the equation for a circle, it looks like this. And it equals r squared. It equals the radius squared. So you don't want to get tricked by that wording right there. You're not just finding like radius. You need to find the radius to find the diameter, but you don't want to just accidentally find radius instead of diameter. So be careful. And then we want the coordinates for the center of the circle. So we're also finding the center of the circle, which is just h, k. But you'll notice that the equation doesn't look like what we're used to for the equation of a circle, so we have to fix that by completing the square. So I like to just rewrite it out. Let me go down a little bit. I like to rewrite it with spaces, which I'll show you what I mean by that, like a space next to the x portion and a space next to the y portion that I'm completing the square for. And then I like to add the spaces on the other side as well, so I don't forget to add them to the other side. So like you see how I added a space there, and I added a space for it on the other side as well, because we have to balance the equation. So like if I add something new to one side, I have to add it to the other. So this helps me to not forget to do that later on. Someone said this is on the SAT. I'm in college learning this. That's bad. It's not on every single exam, but they're starting to like complete the square more recently. And it's like one question if it comes up. So we're going to figure out what goes in this blank space right here by dividing whatever's in front of x, whatever's being multiplied by x by 2, and then squaring it. So negative 6 divided by 2 is going to be 3, and then 3 squared is going to be positive 9. And then you're going to do the same thing here for the y portion. So it's just going to be instead 12 divided by 2, which is 6, and then 6 squared, which is just going to be 36. So it's going to be plus 9 plus 36, also on the other side. And then now what you're going to do is you're trying to make it look like the equation for a circle. So we're going to factor this right here. And we're going to say for the x portion, we could factor that as x minus 3 squared and still get all of this. And then for the y portion, we could say that that's y plus 6 squared and get all of that when we FOIL it out. And then over here, these cancel out, so then we just have it equaling 9. So now it looks like our equation of a circle, and then radius squared has to equal 9 based off of that formula. So that means that the radius, if we square root each side, the radius has to equal 3. Now remember, we want diameter, so diameter is double the radius. So diameter equals 6. So automatically from that, we could cross out C and D. And then for the h, k, or the coordinates of the center of the circle, I like to think about it as it's just the opposite of what's next to x and y. So it's just going to be like the opposite of negative 3 is positive 3. And the opposite of 6 is negative 6. So it'd be 3, negative 6. So then it's going to be A as our answer there. You can find the midpoint giving you the points if the center point. Did I miss the first part of this? Wouldn't it finding the midpoint be easier? I don't know what you're talking about with finding the midpoint. I don't see any way to do midpoint formula with this, because you don't have endpoints. So, unless I'm like forgetting something. But let's go to number 7. So number 7 says Olivia and Max will work together to make an 80 origami cranes for a charity event. The graph below represents the possible combinations of time and hours spent by Olivia and Max to complete this job. So like this is the time Max spends, this is the time Olivia spends. On average, how many origami cranes will Max make per hour? So we're just focusing on Max right now. So if Max, this is the time he spends to make the 80 origami cranes, okay? So if Olivia's not doing any work, like Olivia's doing 0 work, then Max is, each of these is going up by 2, it looks like. Yeah. Then Max is doing 16 hours of work right there. It's in hours, I think. Yeah, in hours. So when Olivia's doing 0 hours of work, Max is doing 16 hours of work, making those 80 cranes. So if we want to think of cranes per hour, it would be 80 for Max, it would be 80 cranes that are made over the course of 16 hours. So then if we just simplify that, that's just going to be 5 cranes per hour. So that would be the answer. Are you a math teacher? I'm kind of like an everything teacher. I do like everything except like physics, and then science is like my, like, it used to be my best subject, one of my best subjects in school, but like it's so much like memory stuff that like now I have to prepare for it more. But I do a lot of math stuff on here because it's the most popular. So let's go to number 8. What is the sum of the solution? So sum of solutions is going to be this formula right here, negative b over a. Now you can technically find each of the solutions and then just add it up because that's what sum of solutions means, but it's not as efficient as just using the formula. Now the important part that you have to remember about using the formula is you need to set the quadratic equal to 0 before you do the formula. So I'm going to add x squared to each side so that I have a quadratic set equal to 0. Thank you guys for the likes. Please share and like this live. It really helps out to get this out to as many people as possible. So then we're going to figure out what a and b are. So a, just like with the quadratic formula stuff, a is going to be the number that's multiplied by x squared, and b is going to be the number multiplied by x. And then we're going to plug that into the formula. So it's going to be negative 7 over 1, or negative 7. So D. Someone said, I know your hand is tired holding this phone. Yeah, because I have like an attachment, but I have like this desk right here that like the attachment doesn't work on. Ignore the things that I haven't picked off the floor. But I'm technically not completely holding it. It's like one of those little like mount things, but I do have to like hold it a bit, which is annoying. So then let's go to the function. The function f is defined by this right here. What is the slope of the graph of this function? So just like with, it basically is y equals mx plus b. It's just instead of y, it's saying f of x. So, but the same rules apply where your slope is the number being multiplied by x. So 60 is your slope here. Thank you guys for sharing the live. Let's keep going to number 10. So for number 10, we're finding how many real solutions are there for the function f shown above. And someone just asked, what site do you find these questions? This is actually, I wrote this book. So this is my book on my website, which is in my profile, ag-tutoring.com. There's right on the homepage a link to like where it says SAT materials. If you click that, this is my digital SAT workbook. And how many solutions are there for this function? So whenever it's asking how many real solutions there are, your brain should automatically go discriminant formula. Like just that wording alone should make you think of this guy right here, the discriminant formula, which again, A, B, and C, you figure those out the same way you would with the quadratic formula, where A is going to be the number being multiplied by x squared, B is the number being multiplied by x, and C is the number floating on by itself. And then based on what type of value you get from this formula, like if you get a negative value or something that's less than 0, same exact thing, that means that there's no real solutions. If you get that it's equal to 0, that means that there's one real solution. And if you get that it's a positive value, meaning something greater than 0, then that means you have 2 real solutions. So what we're going to do now is plug in A, B, and C. So we're going to put in root 3 for B, and then we're going to put in 2 for A, and then 8 for C. So then this is going to be just 3 minus, and then that's going to be 8 times 8, which is 64. So you don't even need to like keep solving this because you know it's going to be a negative value. That's all the information you need. So you know it's a negative value, so there's no real solutions, 0 real solutions, A. How many times do you go live and at what times? I messed up that circle. I have been going live more sporadically recently. Like I just kind of go live when I have the extra time, but I do have a set schedule where every Monday I go live at 6 p.m. Eastern time. This is kind of just like an extra live. And I try to tell people on my story and stuff when I'm going to go live if I'm doing these extra ones. Thank you guys for sharing the live and liking the live. It really helps out. Let me just get some water really quick. Okay. So, let's go to number 11 now. So for number 11, we have a systems of equations, basically. You'll notice that there's decimals here. I'm going to get rid of this so we don't mix it up with the problem. Now, you're free to do decimal operations and stuff all you want, but a shortcut that'll save you a lot of pain and suffering will be to multiply by a power of 10 that'll get rid of the decimals for you. So for instance, I see that if I multiply by 10, each of these by 10, I can move the decimal over by 1. So then I'm not working with any decimal values. I'm just working with whole number values. Just remember, you have to do it to the whole entire equation, not just just the decimals. It's everything. So 10 times the 3.5x, that's going to be 35x. And then we have 25y. And then also you have to do 10 times 100 times 17, which is 170. And then you're going to do the same thing to the bottom. So then this is going to be negative 15x, and this is going to be negative 75y. And then this is going to be negative 330. So then now you're free to do like graphing or like substitution, elimination, whatever method you prefer. That's fine. Do whatever you want. For this one, I'm going to do, elimination. And I'm going to multiply this by 3. Because then 3 times 25y is going to get me 75y. And then I see that I can cancel out the y values when I do that. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to say 3 times 35, that's going to be 105x plus 75y is equal to, and that's going to be 0, 1, carry the 2, 510. And then, let me just double check that because I always get like paranoid about my math at night. Yes, good. Okay, so then now we're going to just copy down the other equation because we didn't do anything to that equation, so we don't need to like multiply anything down there. And I'm going to just add these up so I can eliminate the y portions. And then I'm going to say, okay, this is going to be 90x is equal to, and whoops, the negative kind of got cut off there when I did that line, but that is a negative 330. So when I add these all up, I'm going to just do this off to the side. That is going to be 180, positive 180. And then we just have to divide by 90 on each side, and we get x is equal to 2. So I know that x equals 2 here. So now, all I have to really do is plug in 2 for x, and I could find y from either of these equations. I'm going to start by just doing this one so I don't have to work with negatives. I mean, you could do the other one if you want to as well. So I'm going to say 35 times 2 for x plus 25y is equal to 170. And I can already see people asking, like, but what about the 3? Like, you can use the other equation where you multiply everything by 3 and do like the 105x plus 75, all of that. You can use that equation as well. It doesn't matter. They're both equivalent. So then we're going to do 70 plus 25y is equal to 170. I'm going to subtract 70 from each side, and we're going to get 25y is equal to 100. And then I'm going to divide each side by 25, and then that's going to give me y is equal to 4. So I know what x is, I know what y is, so now I can plug it in to find the value of this expression. So let's do that. So we're going to say 2 minus 4, and then obviously the 6 is on the outside, over 4, and then all of that cubed. So it's going to be 6 times 2 minus 4 is negative 2. So it's negative 2 over 4, which is just negative 1/2. So we have 6 times negative 1/2 cubed. So it's 6. And then this is going to be negative 1/2 cubed is negative 1/8. So this is just going to be negative 6 over 8. And if we simplify by dividing by 2 on top and bottom, we get negative, hi SpongeBob, I remember you as Patrick yesterday. And then, so let's divide by 2 and we get negative 3/4, so that's going to be C. Okay, let me just erase that so it doesn't get messy for the second part, or the next problem. Okay, so now we have number 12, and it has this word problem situation happening here. The mass of a solution of ethanol and water is 200 grams. The equation above represents the scenario where X is the volume of ethanol in cubic centimeters and Y is the volume of water in cubic centimeters. If the volume of ethanol is 100 cubic centimeters, which of the following is closest to the volume of water in cubic centimeters? So we want to find the volume of water. So basically we're being asked to find Y. And we've been told what X is, that X is 100. So all we have to do is plug in 100 for X and then solve for Y. So I'm going to do 0.65 times 100 plus 1.2y is equal to 200. So this is going to be 65 plus 1.2y is equal to 200. And then minus 65 on each side, and we have 1.2y. I realized that kind of looked like a 4. I'm going to make it look more like a y right now. 1.2y is equal to 135. And then I'm going to divide each side by 1.2. And then if I divide each side by 1.2, then that's going to be 115. Or the closest it's going to be is to 115 right there. Is it exactly that? Hold on, let me punch it in again, because it says closest to, just so I can make sure I have the right wording that I'm using. Oh yeah, it's not exactly 115, it's 112.5, which is closest to 115. So like when you do the dividing by 1.2 on each side, it's technically 112.5, which is closest to 115. Yes, I am using a calculator because why would I not? I mean, if you want to see like decimal operations and stuff, just so you know, I have the 3 reviews on my thing, but people like the fast paced of like the live thing. So it's going to take extra time to do the calculations and stuff, which is just like, why do that? But I have the 3 reviews video if you want to see that on my YouTube for how to do decimal operations. Which expression is equivalent to this right here? So remember, we can't do like power to a power rule. That's the most common mistake people make, where they just try to like distribute that 2 kind of to each of those. You have to remember that this is 4 times this entire thing times itself. So if I'm writing it out, this is technically what it's saying. Or not even technically, it's exactly what it's saying. This is 4 times that times itself. So you have to FOIL out the parentheses portion before before you multiply by the 4 over there. So I'm going to do F stands for I'm multiplying the first things together, so x is x over 6 times x over 6, which is x squared over 36. And then O stands for the outer thing, so that's going to be negative y over 7 times x over 6, so negative xy over 42. And then the inside, that's what I stands for, so negative y over 7 times x over 6, so negative xy over 42. FOILing is an acronym that stands for what you multiply together when you have 2 terms plus or minus in parentheses. So I have 2 things being plus or minus in parentheses. So that means I have to FOIL, meaning I have to multiply the first things, these first things times each other. The x over 6 times x over 6 gets you this. And then I have to multiply the outer stuff, so negative y over 7 times x over 6 to get negative xy over 42. The inside stuff is this times this, which gets you negative x over 42. And then L stands for you're going to multiply the last things. So negative y over 7 times negative y over 7. So that's going to be plus y squared over 49. And then, of course, you have the 4 on the outside still. So now I'm going to combine my terms right over here. So I'm going to say I have 4 times x squared over 36. And then these terms are going to become negative 2xy over 42 plus y squared over 49 right here. And then this could simplify. If I divide by 2 on top and bottom, it's going to be just negative xy on top and then 21 on the bottom. And then I just need to distribute the 4 to each of these terms. You can go ahead and multiply the 4 times each of these and then simplify, or you can do what I'm going to do right now, which is cross-canceling, which is much more efficient. So 4 times x squared over 36, the 4 and the 36 can cancel out because 4 goes into 36 9 times. So then this is just x squared over 9. And then now you have minus xy over 21. Now 21 and 4, those can't cancel out, so it's just going to be regular multiplication. So it's going to be negative 4xy over 21. And then 49 and 4 do not cancel out either, so it's just going to be plus y squared, or 4y squared over 49. So then that's just going to be A right there. Yes, I am doing algebra on the weekend. Okay, so now let's go to number 14. Right over here. So we're replacing 1, and then this should be a 14, not a 12. And then we're going to subtract 5 over 14 from each side. Someone said something about this problem. Wouldn't it be 4x squared over 36? You can't, that's what I was saying when I said you can choose to simplify if you want. Like, you can say that it's going to be 4x squared over 36, or you can cross cancel because 4 goes into itself 1 time and it goes into 36 9 times. Either way, you're going to get the same thing, like whether you do this first and then simplify, or if you cross cancel. Same exact thing. So then let's go to this one right here. So we're going to subtract 5/14 on each side, and then this is going to be 14 over 14 to get the like denominator. And then that's equal to 1/7t. So then we're going to have that this is going to be 9 on top, 14 on the bottom is equal to 1/7 t. And then we're going to divide by 1/7 on each side, which is the same thing as multiplying by 7. So it's going to be 9 over 14 times 7 over 1 is equal to t. And then we could cross cancel here because 7 goes into 7 1 time and it goes into 14 2 times. So then we have 9 halves. I got the 14 over 14. It's basically just an equivalent fraction. So for 1 is the same thing as 14 over 14 because I needed to have a common denominator, because you can only subtract or add fractions when they have the same bottom number, the same denominator. So the way I did that was 1 is the same thing as 1 over 1, so I have to multiply by 14 on bottom and top to get it to be 14 over 14 so that I can do the subtraction. So let's now go to the next one. So no problem. So let's go to number 15. An online education website charges a one-time account setup fee of $150 and $75 each month for their website. If X customers join at the same time and use the website for M months, which of the following expressions represents the total amount in dollars the online education website has charged these customers? Okay, so remember I always say this on lives when we're working with linear equation word problems. Whenever you see that one-time fee type of wording, that typically means that that's acting as your y-intercept. And then whenever you see like a number next to each or per or every, that's typically the number being multiplied by whatever's acting as x in this situation in y equals mx plus b. So if we're thinking in y equals mx plus b format, this is going to be 150, b is 150, and then the 75 is replacing your m. And then we want it to represent the total amount in dollars that they're paying. So this is going to be all equal to the total money that they're paying. And it says that M is the number of months and X is the customers that join each time. Okay. Or join at the same time. So it's going to be $75 each month. So M is technically acting as your X. And yes, I picked I made M act as your X on purpose to be extra annoying. And the way that you can do this as like a shortcut, if you can't like interpret the problem that way, is you could think about like what is the context here with the 75. Like it's 75 each month, so whatever comes after the word each per every is typically what the units of what's acting as x should be. So like what comes after is months, so you know that what's representing x here in y equals mx plus b should be in months, so that's why you know it's m. So but we also have to think, oh, we're multiplying by how many customers join, because this is the situation for each customer. So then you have to multiply it by the X number of customers that are joining. So then what we're going to get is 75xm plus 150x. So it would be D. Yes, it's D. Okay, so let's go to number 16. So we want to find what is the largest possible solution. So we could just kind of get rid of the square roots because whatever's underneath and each have to be equal for this to work. So we could just say it's x minus 1 squared is equal to 2x plus 13. And then we would say, okay, I'm going to now FOIL this out because this is the same thing as x minus 1 times x minus 1. So then FOIL, remember, is the acronym that stands for what we multiply when we have two terms plus or minus in parentheses times two terms plus or minus in parentheses. So F stands for first, so we're multiplying x times x, which is x squared. O stands for outer, so we're multiplying negative 1 times x, which becomes negative x. I stands for inner, so negative 1 times x, negative x. And then L stands for last, negative 1 times negative 1 is going to be plus 1 right there. So now we can say that that's just all equal to 2x plus 13 because I didn't do anything to that side, and combine our like terms here. So then we have x squared minus 2x plus 1 is equal to 2x plus 13. FOIL is basically square factoring, right? I'm not sure what that terminology is, but I'm used to just saying foiling. I think is that like the diagram stupid thing that they're doing in, I shouldn't say that, but in school with Common Core, like where they do a diagram where it's like the rows times the columns or whatever. Because yes, if it's like that, that's like the visual representation of it. But this is the algorithm. So then what we're going to do now is we're going to set a quadratic equal to 0, so then we can factor and solve. So I'm going to subtract 2x from each side, and then that's going to give me, let me move this up a bit. So when I subtract 2x from each side, I get x squared minus 4x plus 1 is equal to 13. Now I'm going to subtract 13 from each side, and I'm going to get x squared minus 4x minus 12 is equal to 0. Now I can factor this. So this can become x minus 6, and then x plus 2 is equal to 0. And then I could say, okay, remember, I'm trying to find the largest possible solution, so I'm setting each of these equal to 0. I mean, you could do it on paper. I'm going to do it on paper just so people can see. So x minus 6 and then x plus 2, each of those are set equal to 0. And then I'm going to pick whichever of the x's is largest because I want the largest possible solution. So I'm going to add 6 to each side, and that's going to give me x is equal to 6. I'm going to subtract 2 from each side. That's going to be x is equal to negative 2. So which of these is the largest one? Well, this one.